Thank you. I'm going to see if I can stand in front of the speakers without creating any feedback. It's always a very dangerous thing to do, but anyway, it's a pleasure being here this afternoon with you. For those of you who haven't finished your lunch, feel free to continue. I'm used to people not just talking, but actually getting up and walking out on my speeches. So, there's very little that can either offend me or take me aback at this point. It is a rather kind of free-for-all topic that I was said I could address, which was basically anything that I was interested in talking about. So I thought what I would do is talk about, two things primarily. One is why Cincinnati is poised to benefit from some tremendous changes that are occurring globally and also demographically. And then two, talk about in general some of the, as part of that, some of the obstacles that we confront as we try to take advantage of those opportunities. And then finally touch upon some very immediate issues that we have as a city related to money that will have a very significant impact in the short run on our ability to do much of anything, quite frankly. And so let me just briefly talk about the opportunities. Probably, and you have to kind of remember a time when there was not a recession, okay? Kind of go back into your mind and pull out about, what was it, 2007, when we still were going along very, very speedily and with great enthusiasm. The housing market was, needless to say, quite exuberant, in the words of one of the Federal Reserve chairmen at one time. And what we were seeing in the city of Cincinnati was a trend that had already been experienced by other major cities, particularly on the coast. We were finally, after almost 50 years, seeing an increase in the population in the city after 50 years of decline. We were finding that the fundamental physical bones of our community, the basic urban fabric and urban design, which had evolved as a result of Cincinnati having, for a city its size, one of the most extensive streetcar networks at the turn of the 20th century, that the neighborhoods that evolved as a result of that public transportation system actually were the very types of walkable, mixed-use communities that people were seeking to live in. And we knew that people not only were seeking to live in communities that allowed them to own a home or rent a home, but be able to both play as well as socialize and even in some instances work within their own neighborhood. We saw in the suburbs what one can only consider to be faux imitations of the very kind of urban fabric that many of us who have grown up in the city take for granted. It was very, very good. Unfortunately, the recession came along and everything that we had begun to see ground to a halt, not just for the city of Cincinnati, but for everybody else. But there's an important lesson for the city to learn, and that's one of the reasons why I have spent the last now almost 2.5 years on council trying to emphasize certain types of key policies that will allow us to both preserve as well as reinvest in our very competitive advantage. So when the economy recovers, our neighborhoods are in the position to take advantage of the interest and the demand for what is referred to, and this is kind of one of those techno-speak terms which can mean something to someone and mean nothing to anybody else, walkable urbanism. Because that is what people are seeking. Whether you're modest income, whether you're middle income, or whether you're affluent income, there is a significant portion of the market that is seeking to live in walkable, urbane, mixed-use neighborhoods and communities. And it's not just downtown. And it's not just Hyde Park. It is College Hill. Shout out to College Hill in the back. Mm-hmm. It's in Pleasant Ridge. Shout out to Pleasant Ridge, you know, Carl and Marjorie, some of the intrepid leadership over like many years in Pleasant Ridge. It is, you know, if I actually, West End, you know, it's a variety of other places throughout our 52 neighborhoods. So policies which I've been pursuing have been policies that are related to how do we actually position ourselves. And so I've been working extensively with both the city administration as well as local neighborhoods to develop an alternative to conventional zoning. Conventional zoning was developed in order to support the automobile, which does not support basically the very qualities of our neighborhoods. And so looking to develop an alternative to conventional zoning called form-based codes, working with the Department of Transportation and Engineering, since the streets are a major public investment and they actually are the living rooms of our community, to revise the types of policies that they pursue so that they actually complement the revitalization and renovation of our neighborhoods as walkable urban communities. And then in addition to that, have been focusing in terms of trying to prepare to capitalize on the opportunities when the recession comes back, in looking at what we really need to do in terms of our transportation and transit system. How many of you were at the Neighborhood Summit? How many of you heard Scott Bernstein, who was in the opening session? Okay. I was thinking I should bring his PowerPoint and I should just go through it with everybody, but it's a pretty lengthy PowerPoint. I'm going to put it up on my website if any of you want to see it, but it's very, very interesting because whether it's me or anybody else talking about when the economy recovers, how does Cincinnati take advantage of the opportunities? His information, which is very interesting. Scott is with the Center for Neighborhood Technology, cnt.org, for any of you who want to go online and look at what they do. They have worked extensively with the city of Chicago around housing issues and transportation issues, lending issues, a variety of things. But the important thing to note is that they are from Chicago. And there's another very, very, very important person currently in our country who is from Chicago, right? Yeah. Well, CNT was one of the policy advisors for the Obama administration, is one of the policy advisors for the Obama administration, and is currently working also with the state of Ohio around what is referred to as a Livable Communities Initiative. And that is an effort on the part of the federal government through HUD, the Department of Transportation, and EPA to actually integrate programs that address holistically community redevelopment and community development. It's very exciting. And the state of Ohio also has initiated a Livable Communities project working with Scott in order to try to capitalize on the shift in federal policy. Now, what does that mean? What does it mean? It means that for those communities, traditional, older, urban centers, and Cincinnati would fall into that category, most of the first-ring suburbs in this area would fall into that category, the federal government is seeking to shift its policy so that the programs that it pursues, whether it's in HUD or through the Department of Transportation, cease to disadvantage urban centers. Because, as most of you should know, the federal government has pursued policies since the end of World War II, basically, which have gutted the cities and have benefited the suburbs. And CNT, Scott, and the Obama administration are trying to shift that. One of the things which they're doing is trying to change what is considered to be the affordability index. Right now, when we talk about affordability for people in terms of where they live, it's primarily relegated to what are housing costs. But CNT has done extensive research nationally as well as in the Cincinnati region to develop a housing transportation affordability index so that it becomes very clear that while on the one hand people can seek to go 10, 12, 15, 20, 25 miles outside the core city in order to find, quote-unquote, an affordable home, and you've seen them as tract housing way out in Warren County and Butler County, if you combine their housing costs with then their, in many instances, new transportation